In what's becoming a budding basketball rivalry, the Houston Cougars welcome the Arizona Wildcats to town for a football game between two teams trying to make some noise in the Big 12. Can Houston stop Noah Fifita and the Wildcats?
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach, Parker Ainsworth. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to step by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Please make sure to listen each and every day here at Locked On Cougs. If you want to join the conversation and you don't know what to say, tell us in the comments down below. We've been asked about morning time tailgates, and I'm actually going to ask our guest today, Damon, to talk about his morning tailgate routine. This is an early one for the Arizona crowd. Today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at FanDuel. We got more on that fun later. I want to start off talking about the offense, then get to the defense and kind of where Arizona looks like and what they look like on both sides of the football. Last but not least, talk about kind of what the stakes are here. But Damon, it is a 9 a.m. kickoff for the folks in Arizona. That is like before breakfast for some folks on Saturday. What do you do to tailgate that one?
Yeah, that's a tough one for us for sure. When that came down, our boss here at PHNX, she sent it to us and was like, "Ooh, going to be a tough one." We also recently just got a new tequila sponsor here at PHNX, and we were planning on doing a pregame segment where we take a shot called Shots Fired, and then take a shot at tequila, and then immediately start maybe like taking a shot at somebody, maybe on the opponent's side of things. For hate week reasons. And then we came down with the 9 a.m. kickoff, and it was like, oh, that 8:30 tequila shot might not feel too good. So if you guys want to watch that happen, we're going to be on PHNX Sports doing our pregame show at 8:30 sharp a.m. our time. I guess that makes it 9 or 10:30 your time there. And yeah, so we're just trying to have some fun with it. We're going to wake up pretty early in the morning though, once that one hits.
Early with shots of tequila is quite a way to wake up. Now, I think that a shot inject in the offense, and then we call that a segue, ladies and gentlemen. Noah Fifita, I made the argument earlier in the week for my fans, and I want to hear your take on this. Noah Fifita lost a big-time weapon in McMillan to the NFL, and I don't just mean like like they played well together last year kind of big-time weapon. My understanding is Damon played together like since early middle school. Yeah. And I guess I actually feel like it feels more like he's spreading the ball around better without his like go-to buddy to throw to. And I actually weirdly feel like that makes him, obviously McMillan's impossible to defend, but that makes Noah Fifita a little more challenging to defend because I don't know where the ball's going. You've watched him much more closely than I have. What's it been like watching him without McMillan on the side?
Yeah, you're 100% right on the whole T-Mac Noah Fifita relationship there. Those guys are, I'm sure T-Mac might be sacrilegious to Houston Cougars fans, so I apologize. That is what he has asked to be called. So he's T-Mac in our world. Apologies if that offends anybody, but yes, they played together since they were, like really young. They played Pop Warner together. They're best friends. They're basically inseparable is kind of how it goes. And there's a reason that a guy like T-Mac went to U of A. And it's, he's the highest rated recruit in program history. It's because of his best friend. And that was like Noah Fifita's opportunity to play football. So yeah, it's been interesting watching kind of Noah Fifita play for the first time in really like 10 years of his life without that weapon, without that monster, honestly, catching passes. Cause I'm sure in high school, it's even more dominant than what it was in college. And it was pretty damn dominant in college. So, I think it's been interesting, but there was kind of an element of that from our perspective all offseason of like, hey, man, I know that, Arizona has lost their best receiver in program history, but, last year, the second best receiver on the team had about 400 receiving yards over the course of 12 games. I mean, it was putrid from a secondary weapon standpoint. You had Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who a lot of people might know and have become familiar with, who was supposed to kind of take the heat off of T-Mac, but he was suspended and ineligible for the rest of the year, and now he's lighting it up in the NFL, right? So, like, that was supposed to be your other guy that was going to take the load off of him, and you didn't even have a run game. So you had nobody else to throw the ball to, no run game. Arizona brought in a ton of weapons this season, and these guys aren't stars. These guys aren't superstars, but they brought in Chris Hudson from Washington State, formerly of Oregon. They brought in Luke Wysong, who was at New Mexico as their leading receiver last year and even lit up Arizona for 200 yards when they played. They brought in Trey Spivey, who is from the Phoenix area. Dad is Junior Spivey, if anyone cares about that, from the former baseball player, former Diamondbacks World Series champion. And he's been pretty good for the Wildcats this season. And then a guy like Chris Hunter, who was the second leading receiver last year, stepped up towards the end of the season, but was not really doing much in the beginning of the year. I think there's just a lot more mouths to feed on this Arizona offense now. And while they don't have anybody to really go to with the football on big key downs like they did, they also, like to your point, they have a lot of ways that they can hit you with that you're maybe not expecting.
Yeah, you mentioned last year they had their second receiver was like just over 400 yards or something, I think was the stat you just threw out. Just having it right here, they've got 5 guys at over 150 halfway through the season, right? So they're already on track to do much more evenly spread as far as that with them. Now, I want to ask, though, they're good, and I don't mean this in a diminishing way. The big difference between this year and last year might actually be the run game as far as this game goes. Ismail Mahdi is what I've been saying. I'm open to be corrected there. Is over 400 yards. Quincy Craig over 200 yards. Noah Fifita can scoot a little bit himself when he has to. I don't think that's what he wants to do, but he can.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's been the biggest shift in like scheme, or is it still an air happy offense with Noah Fifita swinging around?
Yeah, the balance has been huge. Last season, if you look at the balance of the offense, they were throwing the football all the time because they were down in games. They lost every road game by about 30 points, which, we could talk about that here in a second. But they really struggled, so they had to throw the football. Whereas this year they brought in Seth Dagey, who started at Texas Tech. If any Big 12 fans out there remember, like he was in a Mike Leach air raid system playing quarterback. But when he's been an OC or in his 1 year, he was at Marshall last year, and that was the big change made at Arizona throughout the offseason was they changed coordinators from both defense and offense. They got rid of Dino Babers, who was probably the worst OC in the sport last year, given the talent he had and what he produced. And so, yeah, they've been running a way more balanced offense, and with that comes a significantly better run game. Ismail Mahdi came from Texas State, was great at Texas State. Has been really good at Arizona and kept that rolling. And then Quincy Craig is a really good player. Don't get me wrong; he's provided some decent play for you this year. But the one thing I will preview to Houston fans is Kedrick Reesano is actually probably the other running back to know for Arizona's standpoint. He was the best running back in the last game versus BYU, which was his first game back from injury since he started the Hawaii game in week 1. He's an Arkansas transfer. He's kind of a bigger back versus Ismail Mahdi's maybe more small stature, like pass catching type of back. So that's kind of the lightning and the thunder there, Kedrick Reesano and Ismail Mahdi. And that's what I probably expect to see more so on Saturday.
Well, that actually helps shed some light on. I couldn't tell if Reesano hadn't played until BYU because someone else got hurt or what. So that does enlighten a little bit there. As you see this, I call it like a hat rack thing where like Houston's going to run inside zone until someone stops it. Or, good old back in the day, you're going to see the triple option until someone stops it. Or Dana Holgers needs to want to run mesh until someone stops it. Is there something this offense does over and over again that it's just like their bread and butter thing that they go to where it's like, hey, we're always going to hit the curl on 3rd and 6 or, the old Jason Witten kind of thing? Or is there something, is it more open that you mentioned a lot of balance? So it worries me a little bit.
Yeah, I think not really, honestly. And I think that's honestly probably the problem with the offense this year, really, has been who do you go to when you really need a play? When Arizona was on 4th down in the BYU game, down a touchdown, but they stopped the 2-point conversion. So if they score a touchdown, you have a pretty good chance of winning it if you can just punch in 3 yards. Noah Fifita probably doesn't make the right read if you go back and watch the play. He has Chris Hudson on a slant open, and if he makes that throw, it's probably a touchdown, game over. That being said, he drops an absolute dime in a bucket of an out and up to Nunu Watley. And Nunu Watley has really struggled this season with contested catches. And that's the play call with the game on the line. And I think that kind of brings about a bigger issue with Arizona and their offense this year is really, I think you put the ball in Noah Fifita's hands when you need a play, but who is he putting in, who's getting the ball from him in that standpoint? And I don't think Arizona really has that guy so far this season. Maybe you could say Chris Hudson kind of, he's been hurt and banged up this year, and they've shelved him in games they didn't need him. Weber State, even Oklahoma State, they didn't really need their receivers all that much. But Chris Hudson, Chris Hunter have had some injuries. Those figured to be kind of your two leading guys going into the year, and I don't think we've really seen that yet.
Well, and speaking of leading guys, this opens up into our second segment. I want to ask you something about the defense, actually. But first, it is almost the weekend. Time to take a look back and crown last week's MVP. Who delivered for the Houston Cougars, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving you more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered the most. Let's break it down. Amari Thomas, obviously the MVP, over 150 yards receiving, big-time game in a big-time spot for Houston last year. You've been watching all week. You've been following along that this has kind of been building for him as he's building towards this. It's not a fluke of any kind. This guy is on a streak, and just like Amari Thomas delivered for the Cougs, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You can save more every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season long. You save over $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday and keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo code goes through November 18th. Today's show is also brought to you by everybody's over at Supply House, because when the opening whistle blows on no repair, you got to get your crew moving forward. The Supply House. Order today. See parts on your doorstep as early as tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. The real-time inventory and honest lead times helps keep you from punting on projects, while the industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com. See all the ads out, all the applications out there, I should say, for free. Use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. And so on that defense, I admittedly was trying to think, okay, where's Houston going to get an advantage? And peek behind the kimono here for the folks at home in pre-pod, we talked, and I was like, oh, that's not the advantage I thought it was, and talking about some of the corners and stuff like that for Arizona. You said, yeah, but their safeties are two of their best players, so the corners are kind of almost a negated problem because of how good those two guys are on the back half of the defense at the very back. Tell me a little bit about, not that people associate Arizona with defensive-minded football or anything like that, but what is this defense in year two under Brent Brennan? What can people expect on Saturday out of the Arizona defense?
This defense has been by far the best thing on the team the entire year. And it's nationally, it's up there with the best of them. If you look at, like, if you're an analytics nerd, which I like to dabble a little bit, like EPA per play wise, they're like top 10 in the entire country in adjusted play, like, the efficiency play adjustment per play. And so, yeah, I think that, this Arizona defense under Brent Brennan is similar to the offense, made a big change. They had Dwayne Aquina, who is a very well-respected coach in football circles, was at Texas forever, and, was just, at Arizona during the Desert Swarm days. Like, he's a legend. He's one of the best defensive position coaches of all time. But as a defensive coordinator, it didn't really seem like it worked out. And he's about 70 years old as well. So he's getting up there. Arizona then promotes Danny Gonzalez, who was the head coach at New Mexico, was the DC at Arizona State, actually, during the Herm Edwards years, and was really good for them. And he gets promoted to DC, and this defense has seen just a complete revolution, basically. They're holding opponents to really low scoring. They gave up their first passing touchdown of the season against BYU last week, to which they gave up, I believe, a couple there. So it's not like they only gave up one, but they had really no passing touchdowns all year through 5 games. they're a really good defense. As you said, the safeties are kind of the calling card, the best players, the players that, returned with the most experience. You have even a lot of depth at safety, but everyone really has performed pretty admirably because this defense is ranked so highly. They're top 30, they're top 20. Danny Gonzalez has done a great job rebuilding this defense. So that's from an Arizona standpoint. If you're to know anything, it's that this defense has been really, really tough to beat all year long. And BYU really didn't start beating it until the end of the game when Arizona was trying to protect the lead. And they just unfortunately couldn't do so.
Yeah, that felt like a classic running prevent you from winning kind of situation. And we can talk about that later. I don't mean to begrudge bad memories. A fun fact in making sure I had the guy's background right, I did not realize that Danny Gonzalez actually punted as a student athlete at New Mexico.
Oh yeah,
that random. I did not know that was coming.
He was our special teams coordinator last season as well as the linebackers coach. But our special teams last year was also a disaster, so they moved him off of that and hired a new guy.
It's a move that worked out for the best, apparently. So honestly, I watched the BYU game, and I see Bear Bachmeier throw for a couple touchdowns, and in my head, I'm like, listen, this kid is going to be very good. He's big, strong, fast. He's not exactly known for being like a prolific passer. Do you think that's because Arizona was so focused on hey, he's really good at running the football, we got to take that away? And you think it's maybe he hit you on something he hadn't seen? What was the deal there? Because you mentioned he's the first guy to complete a touchdown pass against you.
Yeah, I don't even think that it necessarily had much to do with the passing game was working all that well for BYU. I think that's just kind of how they got their points. If you look at the game, BYU rushed for, I think, 250 plus yards. And Bear Bachmeier and LJ Martin were pretty unstoppable, especially in that second half, especially in that fourth quarter. So I don't think that there was all that much in the way of BYU's passing attack was looking all that great, especially if you were to rewatch that fourth quarter in overtime. BYU essentially runs it on every single play. Bear Bachmeier is taking shotgun snaps and just Tim Tebow style, just running straight into the line, and it's working for him. So I think the defense got tired at the end of that game, truly, and BYU was just very physical team.
No, and I thought it was interesting. I don't believe on their final drive of regulation, it was under 3 minutes, very 2-minute drill feeling. I don't think they completed a pass. They got a big PI call, right? They didn't complete a pass, and that's kind of antithetical to what you think happens in that situation when you see the comeback happen at a 300 feet level. I want to ask, but that's a nice transition because Houston would probably prefer to run the football if you ask Willie Fritz. Now, the offensive coordinator is not Willie Fritz. Willie Fritz is a defensive guy, but they'd probably rather run the clock, ball control, keep this thing in the 20s, etc. Right? After having just seen BYU, who admittedly has a good running game, put up 250 yards, do you have any pause as an Arizona guy about that happening this week? Or is it kind of, but they have a 240-pound quarterback. Things are different.
I mean, I think that there's an element of that. I think Bear Bachmeier is for sure, even though maybe he's not at his peak evolution of what he's going to be, because I think he's going to be fantastic. But, you look at Bear Bachmeier, Connor, is it Weigman or Weisman? We've been debating this all year.
So we were told Wegman, it's almost like there's no E. It's like Wigman.
Wigman. Interesting. Okay, cool. We noted for future use. And I know Wigman is a very good runner in his own right, but he's not Bear Bachmeier level running. Like I said, Bear Bachmeier looked like Tim Tebow at the end of that game, the way that they were just designing shotgun snaps for him to run into a pile of steam.
Stylistically, very different. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think that the key for Houston will be running the football against Arizona, because I think Arizona's pass defense is good enough to the standpoint of you're probably not going to just light them up. And, for example, I think if you were to look at the Iowa State game versus Arizona, where Iowa State put it on Arizona, Rocco Becht was successful passing in that game. But it was because Arizona, I think, was so afraid of Iowa State's physicality that they were almost giving one-on-one matchups to their DBs and saying, if we're going to have any chance of winning this one, we're going to need to win these one-on-one matchups and hope that Rocco Becht is just not going to dial it up and put it on the money, to which he did in that game, and all credit to them. So I think the pass defense is probably going to be pretty good. I do think that there's a big avenue for Houston to run the football in this one and against Arizona, who just kind of got gashed on the ground. And that's not to say the Arizona run defense is bad. I think they were pretty good early in the game, deteriorated and got tired, especially in overtime, especially in double overtime. But really, Arizona just lost its best defensive lineman for the season in Trey Smith. This was the first game without him in the BYU game. He's probably the best run stuffing defensive lineman. He's a defensive end, but the way Arizona plays, they kind of have him hand in the dirt more and a stand-up outside linebacker who's kind of rushing, standing up off the edge. And so Trey Smith, hand in the dirt guy, run stuffer, probably their best at that. And yeah, he's done for the year. So I think there's an opportunity for Houston to run the football for sure.
So I said I didn't want to begrudge it, but I do want to spend our third segment starting off with this game coming off of that game, because I think that's important. But before we get to that, what do you get when you have a bald eagle standing on top of a silverback gorilla riding a T-Rex? Confidence. Pure confidence. Now, if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. That's where Rugiet Go Long comes in. It's not just another ED pill, it's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor trust medications in one dual action formula so you can get hard and go the distance. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to Rugiet.com, RUGIET.com. Use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 15% off your first order. That's Rugiet, RUGIET.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Make sure to use our code to know who sent you. Today's show is also brought to you by everybody over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, they got NFL season, college football season kind of deals all over the place. And new customers can bet just $5, get $300 back in bonus bets if you win. That's right. If you pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you get $300 back in bonus bets. Now, as I look at this, I've been picking Houston all week. I think that's an easy pick here. The odds actually shifted in your favor if you're with me. Houston's at a +1.5. The over-under set at 47.5. I think this is a 28-24 game, so I'm going over there as well. I want to see more touchdowns. I almost always go over. So what are you waiting for? Head to FanDuel.com, down the FanDuel app today, and get started. And so in transitioning for a little bit here, you play what I would call a heartbreaker against BYU at point of recording like 5 days ago, right? It's late at night, double overtime, felt like you had it, all that jazz, right? Then you turn around and have to play, we mentioned at the start, a 9 o'clock local time in the morning game for Arizona on Saturday morning. You have to go across the country. You have to play in Houston humidity. I'm saying in the 90s, like low 90s, 90, 91, with 55% chance. 55% chance of rain, which implies some humidity throughout the day there in Houston. It is homecoming, and people have been skeptical what that means for a Houston crowd. It can be fickle, but I think homecoming should draw, right? All that is to say, you know this, stats. I don't have to bring them up for you, but I did go through and mark because those interesting. Arizona has had about a decade of having a lot of trouble moving out of the Western or Mountain time zone. And I don't want to go back and talk about 2018 and Derek King and the last time they came to Houston, because that's probably not fair. Very different coaches and teams and all that, right? I would kill to have Derek King back in a lot of ways. He was really fun.
He was awesome.
Yeah. Is there some voodoo around? Like, is there something around the timing of this one for Arizona that makes it more challenging, both timing in the season and timing and literally playing at 11 a.m. Central Time on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's everything to be said about Arizona and their struggles on the road, struggles in an East Coast time zone. I know that these are different coaching staffs, but I do think that kind of stuff translates in a way in a program sense, especially when you're not a football, kind of powerhouse like Arizona is, where your team's very volatile. Like, as much as I think that a lot of Arizona fans, myself included, like to kind of be like, and maybe actually this is not true. Maybe I'm in the minority here. I think I like to tell people we're not as bad as everyone wants to make us out to be in football. We're very mediocre, but there's a lot of really bad seasons mixed in. Like, every feels like half decade, you just have a atrocious season. And most of the time in between, you're pretty mediocre. But with Brent Brennan, for example, one trend that you could definitely point to is they're terrible on the road. That has been a thing in his tenure. If you look at his 2 years at Arizona, I believe he has one road win, Parker, and it is Utah last season, which was at the time a huge win. Utah was ranked, but we all came to find out that Utah was actually a very bad football team that was second to last place, I think, in the conference last year. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it all means all that much at the end of the day. Brent Brennan has not been good on the road, and so honestly, that's where my fear of this game comes in from, is that I don't know if I could see that trend stopping right here in Houston against a pretty good team.
Well, and I was going to bring up that BYU as a home game. I didn't realize y'all have only played one road game this year. How'd you pull that off? Like that seems pretty lucky there, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because, let me see. I mean, we play Kansas State at home, and then Hawaii at home, and Weber State at home. So all three of our non-con games were at home this year. That's what goes into that.
Well, and Kansas State is technically a non-conference game for you this year, right? Because it was pre-scheduled from before all of that, which is, luck of the draw in that way. So you meant it's challenging going on the road. It would be a gigantic win for Brennan and the program to get a win in the Central Time Zone. And so I understand that adds a layer to this. I think both programs, PHNX Wildcats and Locked On Cougs, have pointed out throughout the week that this also weirdly could validate the season for both programs. I can speak to the Houston side of this, but honestly, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way, maybe it's what I think of Kansas State. I don't know that either one of us has beaten a good team yet. And I think highly enough of Arizona, and I don't know what you think about Houston, I guess, that it feels like you could be beating a good team for the first time this season this week. Someone will beat a good team this weekend in a way that might be the first time for either one. And I feel like that is validating for both programs as well. What has the talk been like? Is there that much on this one for the Wildcats?
I think how loud last week's loss was for Arizona fans is very much puts a microscope on this game. Yeah, because I do think that Arizona fans were pretty fired up on Saturday collectively after having a 10-point lead with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter at home, and the way that you kind of honestly laid down for BYU. It wasn't as if, and I think the defense didn't. So I know they gave up some points, they gave up some rushing yards, but they were, it took BYU, I think, 12 plays in the red zone to score, because there was 2 penalties that were called against Arizona that ended up tying the game. The defense didn't lay down, but the offense didn't play a style of football that was conducive to winning. They went out there, they they did the run pass thing on 3rd and long, where they needed 1 first down basically to ice it with 4 minutes left. And they kind of just did the most obvious thing that you could possibly imagine. And BYU was really good defense, able to stop it, shockingly. And then you get the ball back with 19 seconds left, 2 timeouts, and your quarterback is your most experienced player, and you kneel it out and decide to take it to OT. And I think that when you do things like that, you get a microscope on you. And so for Brent Brennan, I think that this one is pretty massive. As far as for the Houston versus Arizona thing, I think it's weird because you're right. I think both teams, if you win, you feel great about the W, because I think you look at both teams on the other side and think that's a pretty evenly matched football team to what we have. But it also feels like if you lose, maybe not as much for Houston because you guys do have the only one loss, but for Arizona, it kind of feels like doomsday if you lose, because no offense to Houston, but Houston is one of the more winnable games on the rest of the schedule from an Arizona standpoint. You have Cincinnati, Baylor, ASU still. You have Kansas, and you have Colorado. So outside of Colorado, I think you look at that and maybe Kansas, that's kind of the caliber of team we're talking about here from an Arizona schedule standpoint. And it's you kind of have to win this game. So yes, I think it's very much like a doom or gloom scenario for Arizona in particular. I won't speak to the Houston side.
Well, and who'd have known Cincinnati would have been a troublesome one there at the end. It certainly went on my bingo card to start the year. Houston handled Colorado fairly well, but at Colorado for Arizona, you mentioned the road struggles. That opens up doors there. It is interesting to be talking about. I don't want to make it elimination style games or anything. Both teams, yourself 2 games away, Houston being 1 game away from bowl eligibility. I don't know that it means that doesn't happen if it doesn't happen this weekend, but it certainly feels like a good chance. And frankly, the kind of chance where, like, if you are competitive this weekend and pull one out, feel pretty good if you're Houston about. Like, you also have West Virginia and Central Florida on the schedule still, and some of those kinds of games. The FanDuel line here, we're a FanDuel company over here. FanDuel line is actually a Arizona favorite by 1.5. So Houston's at +1.5, -110, and the over/under set at 47.5 at time of recording. Is there any of those that jump out to you, Damon, as like, oh my God, I'm hitting that one?
That line flipped, correct? Like it did open as
It started the week at Houston -1.5. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So I guess that's interesting to me a little bit. I will say that Arizona has seemingly in all of the close games that they were supposed to play recently, Iowa State didn't end up being it. Arizona has been, from the opening line, the team that has started winning the points over with the betting public. So I don't know if it's just Vegas is continuously low on Arizona, and then the public kind of brings them back to where they should be. But personally, I mean, I have been known to be a little bit more of the pessimistic half of my podcast over here at PHNX and on the AZ Wildcats podcast. But I will say that as much as I think that this game is pivotal and everything, Brent Brennan's road record, it deters me from thinking Arizona is going to get the W in this one. I think take the home team with the points. I think even screw the points, go money line. Like I'm not to say Arizona can't win this one. I do think that this really could go either way, and it's such a pivotal game for both teams' seasons. And I think it'll be close, honestly, because I think defense travels. Arizona's defense is pretty damn good. Like I think it'll pretty much come down to the wire, and one team is going to be left being like, man, that was a huge game that we just lost right there. So unfortunately, I think just being that it's on the road, I'm going to lean towards you guys.
I've been on Houston too in this one. I think all the external elements, the weather, the home, the timing, all that actually favors them in a way that otherwise a neutral field, decent time with plenty of time to prepare. I might have said this as a coin flip, but that all shifts it for me in what I think Houston wins a close one, but I am picking Houston as well. My score I've been going with is 28-24, so I guess I would take Houston. And I guess, does that put me? No, that I'm not good at math. I think that does put me over the over. This has been Locked on Cougs. I'm Parker Ainsworth. That's Damon. Go check him out at PHNX, covering all things Arizona Wildcats. He and Kevin do a fun job over there. You can go see what the other side's thinking, right? Go check them out. And then basketball season, Dan, we got to hook back up then too, because a couple fun basketball programs to follow as well. Thanks for making Locked on Cougs your first listen of the day, as the everyday that you are. If you want to make sure you check out a second, go check out Locked on Big 12, Locked on Cougs, primarily Locked on Podcast Network, with your team every day. Go Cougs.